Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. I want to try and give a perspective on the current situation in the land of Israel, and it's a very, difficult. It's tragic what's going on, but I want to try and delve in a little bit to see, from a Torah perspective, how we should be viewing what's going on right now. So the Rambam in the laws of fasting and Hilchos Tainus states at the beginning that if something happens, if tragedy occurs, and it doesn't make an impression on us, then we're considered cruel. So, if someone dies tragically, or God forbid, there's, other things that happen, and we don't react. So the Rambam says that we're considered cruel. Now, when things do happen, God forbid, and if there's tragedy, so these things are given to us in order that it should wake us up. If we're the same people after what happens, then that's even in some ways worse than the tragedy, because we didn't gain. It didn't wake us up, so to speak. So during, when the Twin Towers got knocked down and Mayor Giuliani came out and he said, we have to go back to being normal. So that was probably the worst response, at least from a Torah perspective, that we heard, because the whole point is not going back to who we are, or who we were. The goal is to get us to move, get us to do mitzvahs better, to get us to pray better, to get us to have camaraderie one with the other. If the purpose of what happened does not change us, does not wake us up, then all is for naught. There's a discussion in Talmud about a person being afraid. Is a person allowed to be afraid? One place says he is allowed to be afraid. Another place in the Torah says you're not allowed to be afraid. So Rashi there says that the only thing you're ever allowed to be afraid of is if I forget my Torah. That's it. You're not allowed to be afraid of anything else. Now, it doesn't mean you're allowed to put yourself in a situation that is dangerous. You're not allowed to be stupid, right? That's the 614th commandment. Nonetheless, Rashi says you're not allowed to be afraid. You're only allowed to be afraid of forgetting your Torah. So we have to understand why that is, why it's only specifically about Torah and nothing else. And then hopefully we'll see what a proper response to all this going on. So after 120 years, a person gets upstairs. First thing, or one of the first things, difference of opinion, but one of the first things the person is going to be asked is, did you learn Torah? So it's always bothered me, because if a person learns and they don't proper review, so comes in, okay, tell me what you learned. So you say back a few pieces of Talmud or something you heard on Chumash, on the Torah itself, maybe some of the commentaries, but you don't remember so much. So I remember seeing that the soul saves everything. So even if we don't do proper review that we should, nonetheless, the soul is like a tape recorder. So the soul is going to save everything that we learned. Again, how we learned it, how in depth, not in depth, whatever the case is. So at least, we're covered somewhat by that. So imagine if a person, let's say your soul wasn't a tape recorder, And you had to go in front of God and say, oh yeah, I learned this and a little bit of that, and you don't remember who said what, but you remember like some ideas, maybe. Hopefully that's going to be good enough. God will say, okay, fine, you learned. Is that going to be enough? So Torah is something that should never be forgotten. Now that you might say is obvious. But the amount of Torah I learn should be sufficient that if someone asks me a question, I should be able to answer like this. It should be at the tip of my tongue. Now, not everyone absorbs Torah that way. So you have to review, right? If you learn without review, then, what's it worth? My Rebbe's Rebbe, Moshe Schneider, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, may his name be blessed. Moshe Schneider said, you can't learn Torah like you learn any other discipline, right? He's very fond of saying you can't be a frummer student. What's a frummer student? It's someone who's religious, so to speak, or maybe look religious, but they learn Torah like they're learning mathematics. In other words, it doesn't affect their life that much. They can be very wise, they can know quite a bit, but it doesn't change them. Torah is supposed to change a person. That doesn't mean that if a person learns, he becomes a tzaddik, he becomes righteous overnight. He has to work on himself. The Vilna Gaon says a person was created just to get rid of bad character traits. That being the case, it takes a lot of effort. It's hard. But if we don't review, then how are we going to remember? Review doesn't seem like so much fun in reality because, okay, I learned this, you go through it again, you go through it a second time, a third time. It can get sort of monotonous after a while. But imagine if a person learned and he learned and he learned. And now he knows it like the back of his hand. So now he can extrapolate from different things because he has it. It's in his head. It's all there because he properly reviewed. Imagine the satisfaction a person will have when they feel like they own something. They'll learn like a specific thing, whatever tractate or whatever they're learning. But they don't just learn it once. They learn it twice. They learn it 3 times. They learn it 10 times. They learn it 100 times. But after learning it so many times, it's there. You don't have to work that hard to get it back. As long as if you stop reviewing, then maybe it's going to be harder to recall. But the more we review, it's going to be in the palm of your hand. You're going to feel like you own it. You won't be confused. Right? So that's good. So we have something. It's in my pocket. That's great. But Rashi says we have to be afraid you're going to forget things. You're going to forget what the Torah says. Now, I'll tell you the following story that I think gave me a lot of strength, and I hope it gives everyone strength listening to it. I was once by my Rebbe telling over something that I learned. I had to prepare the whole thing that I was giving over, so I wanted to share it with him. And here you have to understand somebody who has the entire Torah in the palm of his hand, right? Not just what the Talmud says, but with its commentaries. And he's one of the top 5 rabbinical authorities in the world. According to everyone today, regardless of whether they agree, with what he holds or they don't, no one disagrees the amount of knowledge that he had. So I went to his house, and I was saying over this whole thing, and in the middle he said, "Okay, stop." I go, "What do you mean?" So he said, "Well, you just quoted one of the commentaries, but you misquoted it. And if you misquote something, then I don't have an obligation to listen." I go, "Misquoted it? So what do you mean? I just saw it yesterday." So he said that go look it up. You misquoted it. So I said, "No offense, I just saw it yesterday." He says, "Go take the book off the shelf." So I said, "Fine, take the book off the shelf, open it up, see this commentary, lo and behold, I misquoted one of the rabbis." that it was quoted. So he said, no, read it. So I had to read it, and he was right. Now, he said the following. He said, obviously, Torah can't be that important to you, because if Torah was that important, you wouldn't have forgot who said what. Sitting and learning, for many years. What do you mean Torah's not important? You really think the Torah's not important? Okay, I mixed up a name. Is that like the end of the world? One of the rabbis I mixed up. Is that is that the end of the world? So he said like this. He said, that which we learn, and that's which we try and understand what the Torah says. Yes, it's important to review. Yes, it's important to cover ground. At the same time, you want it to be a part of you. If it's part of you, then you remember it much greater. You live it much greater, at a much higher level. If you say, okay, I forgot, it wasn't this rabbi, it was that rabbi, does it really make that big of a difference? In the future or in the present, is it going to make a difference in my life? I misquoted it. And he said, that's the name of the game. Because if you learn something so precious, and you don't remember who said what, that's a lack in you. Imagine, let's make it a little more graphic. Person has money in his pocket sometimes, right? Comes in handy. A person has a wad of bills, right? That might be a dream, but let's say he has a wad of bills. Someone asks you, by the way, how much you carrying there? You say, let me count it. 1, 2, 3,000. No, you're going to know the answer like this. You're not going to say, no, it was 52,225. No, sorry, you're off by 50. You're off by 100. Something like that is precious because it's got tremendous value. So you're not going to have to sit there and count it. You already know what's there. And you already know if you took some out, how much is left. And then how much is left after that. So you want to say, money's more important than Torah? No. But if it's something that's important to you, which money has a important value to people, if it's important to you, then you should know how much is there. So you might say, who cares? I'm off by, 50, I'm off by 100, I'm off by 200. Does it make a difference? In this case, it makes a difference. It makes a difference because you're showing that it's important. If it's not important, okay, so you forgot about it. You forgot, maybe instead of having 20,000, I had 18,000, the bigger scheme of things, it doesn't matter. But the point is, you're forgetting what you have right now. Forgetting what I have right now shows that this is a lack of importance. This is not so important. So people asked when he said that, and so after he said that, he said, if you're going to misquote something and Torah's not that important, I have no obligation to listen, and basically threw me out of his house. So people asked, how did you respond to that? So I said, I call that a tremendous lesson and a beautiful love tap. Why was it a beautiful love tap? Because I don't remember the last time he looked at this piece of Gemara and this commentary. It probably wasn't recent. Recent, I would translate as in the last 5 to 6 months. Or even longer. I bet it could be 15 years he didn't look at it, but it was still fresh in his memory. Because when he learned something, he learned it. Became part of him. When it becomes part of you, you don't forget. It's like, oh, here's my hand, I forgot about it. What do you mean you forgot about it? It's right here. Like something that's a part of you, you don't forget. You'll say, oh, I know that like that the back of my hand. See? Hey, what is that on the back of my hand? If it's part of you, you know it. So Torah has to be important in a person's life. Rashi says, you want to be afraid of something in this world? Be afraid of that. Be afraid that you're going to be embarrassed. God's going to say, did you learn Torah? And you say, yeah, I think so. Well, what'd you learn? Well, I learned a little bit about this, and some things about Shabbos, and, but what did you learn? What stuck with you? Maybe you have a few things that did. Hopefully you have more. The bottom line is it just means we're lazy. And we don't want that. But you ask the $1 million question, if I have an opportunity to learn for however long, however much time I give to the day to learn, and you review, and you learn, and you review some more, and you learn, and you review some more, after a while you're going to have something. That's power. Because what you have is something that's not going to go away because it's there. It's part of you. When it's part of you, you can use it in different places. And then Torah goes to a whole different level, because I remember when I first started teaching, and I had no teaching experience, and I went for an interview to a certain place. They said, okay, what do you want to give a class on? So I said, I'll give a class on this. I prepared something in my head, a little bit. In the middle of giving this over, all of a sudden I remembered, a piece of Talmud somewhere. I said, oh yeah, so it's like this, and it's like this, and then I started to extrapolate, and boom, boom, boom. Like all these different things started going, nothing of which I had prepared. Sort of came out. So they say people who teach have a tremendous amount of siyata d'shmaya, of heavenly help. Like that Gemara was learned like years before, or a few years before, let's say. Like you never know where things actually come up. And when I made a point about something, it jarred my brain to think about that, and then went haywire after that. Because then I brought from here and this and that, and so it's there. It's part of you. And it can get used if you harness it right. So Rashi says, you want to be afraid of something? I'll give you something to be afraid of. The thing you should be really afraid of is you forget what you learned. Then when you forget what you learned, you don't remember. Then when you don't remember, it becomes confusing. Because then, if I know something, and I remember it, I can use it for other things. In other words, I remember once, and I had tremendous joy when I saw a piece of Talmud that said a particular statement. And there was a whole discussion back and forth. And then I remembered, but there's another Gemara somewhere else, another piece of Talmud that says the opposite. So I said before I jump the gun, see some of the commentaries, see what they say, see if it's a real question. It's not a real question. Look on the other side of the page. Tosfos, one of the main commentaries on the Talmud, asks the question. He says, if you're going to say this, how can you say it? There's a source somewhere else that says just the opposite. So then you have to reconcile how the two can fit together. Maybe one's talking about this, the other one's talking about something else. When I saw that, and it didn't happen like all that often, but when I saw something like that, I jumped for joy. Because that means your learning hit a different level. Because you remembered something somewhere else, and now you're swimming in the ocean of learning. Right? Learning what the text means, that's one level. Understanding what the commentaries say is a second level. See where the commentaries disagree and why they disagree, that's a different level. Right? Multi levels to Torah. So if you have something in your hand and it's part of you and you remember it, it gets stored away. Right? Kind of like something you write on the computer, push save. Hopefully there's no electricity's not shut off, and you spent hours doing this, you didn't save it, right? Certainly can happen sometimes. It's there, it's in stored memory. As long as your hard drive doesn't go. So you put it somewhere else where it's safe. Either case, it's there. It doesn't go anywhere. And then you can pull at it when you need it, if it's stored properly. So he said that, there's tragedy going on in Israel. What are you talking about forgetting Torah? What in the world is the connection? So Rashi says, you want to be embarrassed? You want to be afraid of something that's going to shake you to the core, or which it should? That's forgetting what I learned. But that's it, Rashi says. He doesn't say anything else. The only thing you're allowed to be afraid of in this world is if I forget what I learned. Because there's nothing more important to that. So now you'll ask, there are all these crazy cases going on in Israel today with the Arabs and knife attacks and all these different things. People don't feel safe anywhere. Scary. But see, God says you're not allowed to be afraid. You have to protect yourself. That you can do. People buying pepper spray and clubs, and I saw one person, he says, I'm prepared. I got my Louisville Slugger, right? I'm ready. Let him come at me. Well, he's not going to come at you straight with a knife. Come from behind, and then your Louisville Slugger or your pepper spray is not going to do so, not going to help so much. Depends how it's done and whatever. So you can say, well, other people carrying this stuff, so they'll come to my aid. Hopefully. So at a certain level, we can't be stupid. But this is a whole different ballgame which most people don't understand. I'm not going to get into the politics of what's going on. It just gives, whatever reason that they're saying, it's just giving them a reason to do what they're doing. They say they were Jews on the Temple Mount. We can kill people for that. They can say they were building in quote unquote the West Bank. We can kill for that. It's just an excuse. See, we could go back. You have to see my video on Bereshis that we spoke about the first Rashi in the Torah. That Rashi asked, why does the Torah start with creation? Why didn't he start with the first mitzvah, Exodus chapter 12, mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh, of the new month? So Rashi says, because the nations, especially the Canaanites, are going to complain and say, you stole our land. You came into the land after Moses died with Joshua and all the people, and they took our land. So Rashi says, you can't say that. Because God created the world. He can give the land to who he wants to. So you have to see what we spoke about when I spoke on Tanakh Talk, that I spoke about in length. So I'm not going to get into the politics of what's going on. The question is, what's the purpose? Right? So nothing happens in the world for no reason, even if we don't understand it. Right? We see things that God does things in order for us, for the sake of the Jewish people, for good or for bad. So if there's a tsunami somewhere and it wipes out, let's say, half of Southeast Asia because they want to put Atlas back on the map, no pun intended. You want to make more maps, so you just have to change it now. There's a tremendous lesson to be learned. Tsunamis are scary, wipe out tens of thousands of people. Hurricane, same thing, right? This is the problem that we have, that if we believe God is good and God wants goodness for his people and for the world, why does tragedy occur? Age-old question. When bad things happen to good people. So we're not necessarily going to deal with that now. But, we see things that doesn't make any sense. The Jewish people live l'mala min hateva. The Jewish people live above nature. The state was founded above nature, almost got destroyed because the other nations within it, you had the Transjordians, you had the Syrians, you had the Lebanese, you had Egypt, you had all these countries on all sides wanting to destroy it. Just so happens there was not anything of a own people, i.e. these Palestinians. They weren't their own entity. They happen to belong to Jordan or Lebanon or any of these other places. So we're the ones, unfortunately, meaning Israel, created them. They didn't have their own entity. They didn't have their own state. We stole their land. We didn't steal their land, first of all. There's no country in the history of man that's ever had to give land back in a defensive war. That's first thing. There was, years ago, a population exchange between India and Pakistan, 70s or 60s, whenever it was. That's it. No one ever fought a defensive war, had to give land back. But these people fled. So if they fled, that's it. Might makes right. We get the land. You fought against us. That's it. Why should we give it back? But they were pretenders to the throne. They were part of other peoples. They weren't their own entity. Okay. I said we're not going to get into politics. They don't have a leg to stand on. But they're very good at portraying things the way they're not. Be that as it may. So they'll claim, we took their land, we did this, we did that, so we have a right to riot and kill. So if you look at Jewish history is totally miraculous. If you go through the prophets, we see a pattern. Jews do the right thing, Jews on top. Jews do the wrong thing, bam. They lose people, they lose wars. Common theme. So we have to realize that even though we're in the land now, and it's an absolute miracle, and it's definitely, the final redemption is coming, just depends when. But it doesn't mean we have to be in the land for Messiah to come. There is a opinion, there's a measure that says that when Messiah comes, we're not going to be in the land. Is it really true? Does it, you really think, I've had people ask me this, do you really think that's going to happen? It's hard to imagine, but you never know. In my language, chump don't want it, chump don't get it, right? The end of book of Leviticus. God can spit us out of the land as well. Or we can decide to give it to them. By choice. Which also makes no sense. But, again, we're not getting into politics. We see something now in this war between the Jews and the Arabs. We see something we haven't seen. Yes, they had people blowing themselves up, and yes, we saw, rocket attacks, more recent history. Recently, though, over the last few years, we've seen an upscale in using almost anything to try and kill people. Using a tractor, because a lot of Arabs work on work sites, building sites. So they have access to tractor, and there was a case where tractor tried to overturn a bus. Thank God people on the bus weren't killed. Someone else got run over by the tractor, was killed tragically. Just last week, this week, that someone, got run over in a Bezeq truck. Bezeq is the phone company here. They work for you have Arabs that work for the phone company. And, people got stabbed in the old city. I mean, all these things with knives and it's just whatever. It's, it's a scary thing. But the thing to keep in mind, and this is the point, this is really the main point I want to make, is it's not like they live in their own places, right? There are not too many mixed places where Arabs and Jews live together. They have their communities, we have our communities. But they work all over the country. They don't just work in one place. They work in stores. They work in construction. You can see they work for Bezeq. You have some of them work for the phone company, other companies, whatever it is. They're everywhere. This is the scary part about what's going on. Because the reality is, even if I have my Louisville Slugger, you have no idea when someone's going to come at you. Could be on a bus. Could be walking down the street. It could be anywhere. And a person could get attacked. How do you prepare for that? You have to have eyes, in the back of your head, side of your head, maybe over here, to be able to see. Or, a car all of a sudden could speed up, go 80 miles an hour and ram people in who are standing waiting for a bus. How do you prepare for that? A lot of good your Louisville Slugger's going to do. Ain't going to do diddly squat. You're not paying attention. All of a sudden you see this car coming 80 miles an hour. Split second you have to move. You move, maybe you get saved. If not, that's it. So Moshe Schneider used to say, and he lived in London, near the yeshiva in London, when the bombs were flying all over, destroying London by the Nazis, Yimach Shemam, may the name be blotted out. He didn't leave the base measures. He didn't go into a bunker, in a sealed room, whatever it was. Because he said every missile has its place. If it's your time to go, that's it. No matter what you do, you're not going to be able to buy off or save yourself from the angel of death. But this is much worse in a certain way. Because you don't know where it's coming from. Come from here, come from there. Come on a bus, come on a train, come walking down the street, could be in the store. It's scary. So, one of the messages we learned from the Holocaust was that you can never rely on man. Because the obvious question was, where's God? Where was God during the Holocaust? Well, God's where he always was. I don't understand the question. Well, why did God kill so many people? It takes a lot of people to kill 6 million people. Right? You had the Latvians, you had the Ukrainians, you had the Polish, you had Czechoslovakia, you had all these different countries rounding up and getting Jews ready for slaughter. So that's not the question. The question is, you had the most humane society in the history of man at that time. In Germany. Who were the first people to join the Third Reich? It wasn't the skinheads of today. It was the academics. It was the philosophers. It was the doctors. And they treated their dogs better than they treated Jews. They believed in what they were doing. It wasn't like Hitler put a gun to their head and said, do it or I'm going to kill you. Right, the book called Hitler's Willing Executioners. 600-page book. I think it's a good thing to have. It was written by, I don't know if he's still the chair of the Holocaust Studies at Harvard, I think. But it shows that there are a lot of people who, defied what Hitler wanted them to do, and they didn't do it. And they didn't get killed. It's case after case after case there. Be that as it may, that's not the question is not why God did it. That's a bigger question. But where was man? We know that in Israel at the time, they had the ability to ransom thousands of Jews in Europe. And Israel said, we're not interested. We don't want these old European Jews. We don't want their old language, their old Torah. We don't want that. We're the new Jews. We're Israel. So what happens? They don't ransom off Jews, they die. America sent back boats that were coming. So you can say, okay, America might have had an excuse because, they didn't want to get involved in the war. They did everything possible not to get involved in the war until they got, they got attacked at Pearl Harbor. So they wanted no part of it. Send the Jews back to their death. So mankind looked the other way. Jewish blood is meaningless. We've seen that throughout the millennia. So here too, there are lies all throughout the media. I wouldn't even tell people to look at what's going on, in newspapers or on the internet. It's just, Abbas came out the other day, and this 13-year-old kid that had attacked, another teenager Abbas said, oh, look, they killed him and they murdered him. No, he's still alive. Right? He's still alive. And like you look at headlines, Palestinian kid alleged, knife attack. Alleged? Where's the uproar? Just the other day, the Americans were saying you have to restrain yourself. Using excessive force on these people. So let me ask you the $1 million question. Someone comes with a meat cleaver. You ever seen a meat cleaver? It's pretty, I'll make it even better. Guy's got an axe. Nice size axe. And he's coming running towards you. So now you're going to say, well, you don't have to shoot him and kill him and, whatever. Well, what are you supposed to do? Excuse me, Ahmed, could you put the axe down? Let's have a conversation. 3 seconds later, you're dead. Can we talk about this? Maybe we'll go to a private place. We'll have a whole discussion. We'll have some tea. You'll calm down. No. He's going to kill you. The Torah says he's coming to kill you. You can kill him first. Okay, if you don't have to kill him, then, that's something else. But you have to do what you can to defend yourself. What in the world is excessive force? Excessive force would mean you stop and then you beat them to death. That I could hear would be excessive force. But people are so aggravated. An Arab, last week almost got lynched. They got him down and people were kicking him and beating him. And if you would have done that and he would have died, he'd go to jail. He just tried to stab a number of people or maybe killed somebody, whatever the case was. You don't have a right to kill him. You don't have a right to beat him. I'm not going into whether halachically, according to Jewish law, it's permissible or not. But if he's coming towards you, you do whatever you can to save your life. You stop him. If that means take out his legs, shoot him in the head, whatever. You do whatever you can. Knives kill. Axes kill. Pretty sharp. So, what's the point? The point is, as we mentioned, according to nature, how do you stop this? If you had an enemy and it's your army against their army and it's strategy, it's one thing. If you got individuals living in your country and, they're working and everything else, they're all around you. So let me ask, how would you stop it? I don't see a way to stop it. Unless you just stop them coming in altogether. That's not going to happen. Right? Public opinion and the rest of the world will never allow that to happen. They'll say, we caused it, and, we took over the land, and we're occupiers and all this. But the reality is, they're all over. They're in all cities. They could send 1, 2, 3, 50, 100. And be paralyzed. Absolutely paralyzed. Because the reality is, if God doesn't want it to stop, it won't. So God says, you know what? You just came out of Rosh Hashanah. You came out of Yom Kippur. You came out of Sukkot. I'm not so happy. See, we always pray better when there's like a knife at our throat. If things are going more or less okay, we don't pray as well. God wants something. He's telling you one very, very simple thing. I run the world, and if you don't shape up, I can destroy you like that, and there's no way to stop it. You can have the most mighty army in the world. They can only, prevent more tragedy. Sometimes they'll nip it in the bud if they get lucky, right? If God helps them. But see, the end of the day is the following motto that we should be saying under our lips on a regular basis. Ein od milvadoi. There's only God. So that means that, I wish I had a better solution. But see, we do have our weapons. The weapons are Torah. The weapons are doing acts of loving kindness, gimilus chesed, doing mitzvahs, strengthening ourselves in belief in Him and how He runs the world. Now, everyone said that, there were a number of bus bombings years ago, one after another. And people were terrified, to go on the buses, which, reasonable. So I started asking different things. I was much more into politics then. So, I started asking different things, and he said, let me ask you the following question. Are you happy 95% of the time the way God runs the world? I thought about it. Yeah, 95%, yeah. He said, the other 5%, he said, you'll never understand in 10 lifetimes. Go sit and learn. You let God do what He has to do, you do what you have to do. Okay, so now, practically speaking, you live in Israel and you're terrified to walk out of your door because you just don't know what's going to be. That is a reality. It's it's no joke. But we said before, you're not allowed to be afraid, so you can take precaution. How much the precaution is going to help? Can't answer that. Right? You want to take pepper spray, you want to carry a knife, carry a gun, if you know how to shoot it, or take your Louisville Slugger, whatever it is. Right? You can protect yourself. As a mitzvah, the Rambam says to guard yourself. That we shouldn't be overweight, we should exercise. That'd be actually a good topic for another time. But anyway, you have to guard yourself. You can't be stupid. Right? That's the normal hishtadlus. That's what we should do. Do what we can. But they're not going to attack you straight away. Say, I got an axe. I got a Louisville Slugger. Let's see who's going to win. That's not going to happen. It's going to hit you when you're not looking. Still, we have to put our best foot forward. But God's saying, okay, you can do that. You can bar the Arabs from coming in for a certain amount of time, give you a little bit of quiet. But they're going to be back. How much can we prepare ourselves? We have to do what we can do. At the same time, prayer has to be increased. And we have to realize there's no one out there that's going to help us other than God Himself. Look at the headlines. Nobody cares. Jewish blood is hefker. It's ownerless. They can spill as much as they want. Who's going to come to our aid? Nobody. We should have learned that from the Holocaust. Still, we want to depend on man and the nations to help us, to save us, to this, to that. Don't rely on anyone. That is what the purpose here is. Because God just boxed you into a corner. A nice big corner. And He says, how are you going to get out? Very good question. If I go left, I might get hit. If I go right, I might get hit. If I stay straight, I might get hit. And if I stay in the corner, I also might get hit. Sounds pretty scary, huh? So you say, but Rabbi, what's the answer? He's the answer. We have to lay ourselves on the line and say He runs the world. We have to do what we normally do. Again, can't be stupid. But you have to live. You don't want to say, well, maybe I'll just go to the store these hours, maybe I'll do this. You have to live. You can prepare yourself, you can strengthen yourself, whatever. But according to nature, unless someone has a better solution without killing all of them or sending them out of the country, right? Those are the only two other viable solutions. They're not so viable at all. But He's boxed us in a corner. A huge corner. And the only thing to realize is just like when we sat in our sukkah, and on the walls of the sukkah was this white bad, this white cloth that reminded us of the ananei kavod, the heavenly clouds. Took the Jewish people when they came out of Egypt, gave them all their needs, their clothes never worn out, etc. To remember that we're in this flimsy hut where we're not protected by the elements. If it rains, we're going to get wet. If it's cold, we're going to be cold. Okay, you can put a heater, you put an air conditioner, inside your sukkah, but we're treated, we have to fight against the elements. That's the whole point, to show that we live in a temporary world. That's why we read the book of Koheles, Ecclesiastes. Right? Because it says everything is nothingness in this world. The only thing is Torah. That's right, the main theme. So we're getting a big wake-up call. I mean, it seems like it's never dull moments here in Israel, but, this is a big wake-up call. As the Rambam said, how are we going to react? Are we going to put our faith in him? Or are we going to put our faith in man? Or we're just going to say, well, it didn't happen to me, I don't know anyone it happened to, I'll go on, life is normal. That's not good. That is definitely not good. So, at the end of the day, we just need to work harder. We need to be better. Because this doesn't seem that it's going to go away anytime soon. Could dissipate for a while. Maybe it only lasts a few weeks. Like my Rebbe says, it shouldn't last that long. But it's a huge wake-up call, because the reality is we have no way to stop it. As great as our enemy is, as great as our army is. And I hope no one's listening. We also have nuclear weapons. Don't tell anyone. But how's that going to help in this case? You have a mighty army. You have weapons. How do you stop this? And we already know what the answer is. He is the one that stops it. Because of your belief in him. And you say, Ein Ob Milvado. That's it. We put all our stock in him because we have no one else. Who's going to save us? Ain't going to be the Americans. Certainly not going to be Europe. Now, who's going to come to our aid? Who's going to come up with a great solution to stop Arabs from working in places and then stabbing people? Go try and infiltrate their education system. See what education they give to their kids. It's where it starts. It's where it's been for the last 50 years. But again, without getting into politics, you say they're occupiers and you guys are occupiers and you did this and, they did it to themselves. UN helped. Israelis helped. Situation is what it is. But you see, Jewish people are stuck. Ones in Israel even more stucker. Because there's nowhere else to go. Not going to shop. Not going to walk outside. Be a little more careful. Carry my slugger, nunchucks. When the angel of death comes, he comes. You don't have to put yourself in line for him to come. Definitely true. But at the end of the day, God's knocking on the door. And he's telling you the following. I'm not giving you any solution. Because you know why? There is none. So you have one thing to do. Pray. Learn. Become better. That's how it stops. Doesn't stop with missiles. Doesn't stop with anything. It stops when we do what we need to do. And in this case, there's nothing else to do, practically speaking. That's exactly what he wants. He wants you backed into a corner to say, I have no other choice but to pray to you because nothing else is going to work. So I saw yesterday in Tehillim, in Psalms chapter 4, David HaMelech, King David, says that that God has saved him from the past. He's going to save him from the present and the future as well. So one of the commentaries says over there, at the end of the verse, it says you have to believe in God. Right? Because you have this unbelievable faith in God. So one of the commentaries says, you know what? That's where it all starts. Because even if we have good deeds without faith in God, it's nothing. And again, faith doesn't mean I just, high in the sky type of thing. We understand God exists. It's faith through knowledge. But he says, this commentary says, don't think it's the strength of your own hand that's going to save you. King David, who's going to save you? It's going to be me. Because King David cried out to him and he saved him before, in the past. Because he's running from his son Avshalom. And he says, not only did you save me in the past, because of, some of my good deeds, you saved me in the present and in the future. So the commentary says, but don't think it's your own action. It's your own strength. No. It's only because you have faith in God and God's going to save you. The strength of your hands means nothing. It's like your hands are tied behind your back. As a great warrior that you are, it's not going to help without heavenly help. So we can't be so depressed we can't function. At the same time, as we mentioned before, we have to let God do what He does, and we have to do what we have to do. And the only thing, and I don't want to say the only thing, this is the best weapon that we have, is a prayer book. Is the book of Psalms. Is learning Musar to understand, or Jewish ethics as it's called, to understand that we have to become better. To learn as much as we can. To dedicate ourselves as much as we can. That's the weapon of choice. And that's what we have to do. Because if we don't do it, it's game over. According to nature. So you say, well, you don't have to be so pessimistic. We're above nature. That's true. We are. The Jewish people. And this could be the beginning of the end. What's going on in Syria with Russia. It could be, the beginning of the, when the Messiah is going to come, etc. Whatever it's going to be, we don't know. But not many are going to survive, at least psychologically, if they don't have proper faith. And that's going to be the test before the Messiah comes. You're going to see things you don't understand, that don't make any sense. And then when there's no one else around and everyone's doing and ganging up against the Jews, you say, Ein od milvado, you have to save us. That's written in your Torah. You will never forsake us. You will bring the Messiah when we deserve it. But at the last second, when we think we can't handle anymore, that's when He's going to come. And everyone's going to agree He is the Messiah. So we have to build ourselves in faith, belief in divine providence, and belief that God knows what He's doing. We're not privy to that. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in a lot of ways. But at the end of the day, I'm going to rely on Him because that's who we are. We've relied on Him before and He's come through. When we look back, plenty of things we don't understand. Okay, we're not God. That's fine. We can say we don't understand. But He's the one pulling the strings. So if He's the one pulling the strings, that means that we have to be prepared. You can be prepared physically But more importantly, you have to be prepared spiritually. And being prepared spiritually means I cry out because there's nothing else to do. There's no one else to turn to. It's not like the fact, okay, we'll just turn to you because we have no choice. He's giving us no choice. That's clear. So just like by Mount Sinai, he chose us, we chose him. That's forever. And he'll never forsake the Jewish people. But he's begging. He's begging, listen, I don't want to have to do this. Just change. Do something. Show that you don't want this. Show that it bothers you. Show you want that connection more. And I'll take it away. And I'll let them leave you alone. That's the realization. So we have to flex our spiritual muscles, so to speak, and take our spiritual weapons and run with them. Because unfortunately, it could be a whole lot worse. We certainly don't want that. We don't want innocent blood being spilt. We want to do what we need to do so the Messiah can come in pleasant terms, not in, nasty terms, where you have thousands and potentially millions of people getting killed during this time. So I hope that was depressing enough for everyone. I think we know what we need to do, and we just have to go out and do it and show God what we want and show him that we've chosen him. Just want to mention that I also give conversion classes and classes for Noahides. You can take a look at my Facebook page at Beyond Orthodox Conversion to Judaism and Beyond Noahides, and my blog, rabbichaimcoffman.blogspot.com, rabbichaimcoffman.blogspot.com. So let's take some of this and really utilize it so in the end we'll have the ability and be here for the coming of the Messiah speedily in our days.